.513, so 51.3%. That is Keegan Murray's true shooting percentage this season. And if you are not familiar with true shooting percentage, it is a way to measure shooting accuracy on 2-pointers, 3-pointers, and free throws. So kind of all your shooting all rolled up into one. And on one you think, 51.3, that's better than half. Sounds decent. Not so much, my friend. Out of 163 players who've played at least 750 minutes this season, Keegan Murray's 51.3 is 154th, bottom 10 among that group. So that's a problem. And it's definitely not what the Kings thought they were getting with Keegan Murray when they drafted him 4th overall. He comes in, he becomes the all-time rookie leader in 3-pointers as a rookie. Plug-and-play starter on a playoff team, but the offensive game is kind of deteriorated as represented by his 3-point shot in specific, but not creating and knocking down shots at a high level. So what do you make of Keegan Murray at this stage in his development, of the downturn that he's experienced? And do you think he's still sort of part of the long-term solution here in Sacramento, or maybe more part of the problem?
What a fascinating story he has. Just coming into the league and instantly becoming like a starter on a playoff team. And that you just rarely see that in the NBA, that a rookie can have that kind of high impact as a 3-and-D guy. But he was that for the Sacramento Kings under Mike Brown. In Keegan Murray's last 2 games, shooting 7 of 14 from downtown. He's not a high volume free throw guy. He's a guy who's going to spot up from the corners, play a little DHO. He's not necessarily going to go downhill and get to the free throw line. So that true shooting percentage is really coming out of those high percentage shots from the floor. And you're hoping that he has a little bit of a Victor Wembanyama turnaround, where it's like, hey man, where's that jump shot? We saw so much of it a little bit ago. Where did that go? How can you reclaim that jump shot that was so good earlier? And maybe he has it under Doug Christie. And this kind of energy that we're seeing from the team is going to boost up Keegan Murray. I do think we need to see a little bit more sustained shooting for me to believe that he's a core member of this Sacramento Kings franchise, or at least get back to where he was his rookie season. And what you're pointing to is a guy that kind of has plateaued. And maybe that's one of the reasons why Mike Brown was let go, is they just aren't seeing the sort of development that you were expecting after such a great start to his career. But to John Hollinger's credit, he wrote a great story at The Athletic talking about the curse of Coach of the Year is really just the story of unreasonable expectations. And I think Keegan Murray is a great example of that, is if he doesn't have such a great rookie season, maybe we aren't talking about him plateauing. Instead, we're talking about him as incrementally getting better. But because he started so high, we have no choice but to look at that decline rather than saying, you know what, Keegan Murray in year 3 of his career, not a bad player. A pretty solid contributor for the Sacramento Kings. But unfortunately, we do have that unfair expectations on a guy like Keegan, who came out so hot in his career.
It makes a ton of sense. And there's also the component of you are tasked with suddenly becoming your team's best perimeter defender because there kind of isn't another option, right? Like, everyone's looking for who can get a stop, who can guard another big wing, who can guard an opponent's top perimeter scorer. And on a team where Domantas Sabonis is not a great rim protector, where De'Aaron Fox, as we mentioned, can be sort of touch and go with his point of attack defense, where Keon Ellis wasn't really playing, where Malik Monk has his moments, or Kevin Huerter's not necessarily, there really aren't great. And DeMar DeRozan has size, and he's smart and he'll battle, but not exactly a lockdown guy and never has been. Keegan Murray almost by default has been kind of shoved into that role. And you do wonder a little bit if being the only real plus defender in that unit and having to deal with the toughest assignments every night has sort of sapped his offensive game a little bit, which then, to your point, like if Keon Ellis is in that lineup and now you're sharing that defensive responsibility a little more, or maybe it's not quite as important for you to be the number one guy, maybe, that opens up a little more energy for him on the offensive end. He's also, I think, some foot and ankle issues the last few weeks. So maybe on the other side of that, the shot comes back around. We certainly would love to see that for Keegan Murray.